Change was coming to the Vrexian world. Slow, careful change. One mark at a time, 2 months had passed since Jiwoo first arrived on the Vrexian world. Her classroom now held 40 cubs. The stone walls were covered with their drawings and practice letters. Some were crude, barely recognizable. Others showed real skill. All of them showed effort. Crix had become the best student. His control had improved dramatically. He could write full sentences now, though his handwriting was still rough. More importantly, he understood the power of what he was learning. He wrote constantly, stories about his pack, observations about the world around him, questions about things he wanted to understand. One morning, Crix came to class carrying something wrapped in cloth. His eyes shone with excitement. "Teacher Jiwoo," he said, "I have been working on something. I want to show you, but not here. Can you come with me?" Jiwoo was surprised. Crix rarely asked for anything beyond teaching. "Of course. Where are we going?" "To the memorial cliffs, where my pack honors our ancestors." They walked through the Vrexian settlement together. Adult Vrexians watched them pass. Some nodded respectfully at Jiwoo. Others turned away, their expressions hard. The divide over the writing program had grown wider. Half the population saw it as progress. The other half saw it as a threat. The memorial cliffs stood at the edge of the settlement. Tall stone walls carved with symbols, not writing but pictographs. Simple images representing great hunters and warriors. Names were spoken here, not written. Memory kept the stories alive. Crix led Jiwoo to a quiet section of the cliff face. He unwrapped the cloth. Inside were several sheets of paper, carefully preserved. On them, he had written a detailed history. "This is everything I know about my grandfather," Crix said. His name was Croter. He hunted the great ridge beasts of the southern mountains. He led his pack through the famine of the Red Season. He trained 12 cubs who became pack leaders themselves. All of this I learned from stories. But stories change over time. Details are lost, so I wrote it all down. Jiwoo read through the pages. Crix's handwriting was careful, each letter formed with thought. The story was detailed, specific. Dates and locations and actions. This was not just a legend. It was history. "This is incredible, Crix," Jiwoo said. "But why did you bring me here?" "Because I want to teach my pack this skill. I want them to write down their own histories before the details are lost. My pack leader says I need your approval first. You are the teacher. You brought this knowledge. We must respect that." Jiwoo felt warmth spread through her chest. This was what she had hoped for, not just learning, but sharing. Knowledge spreading like ripples in water. "You do not need my approval," she said. "This knowledge belongs to everyone now. Teach whoever wants to learn." Crix's face showed relief. "Thank you. I will start with my pack siblings. There are 8 of us. 4 have already asked me to teach them." Over the next week, Jiwoo noticed a change in the settlement. Small groups of cubs gathered in quiet corners, practicing letters. Crix moved between these groups, helping, correcting, encouraging. He had become a teacher himself, but not everyone was happy about this. Elder Thrace called a council meeting. All the human diplomats were required to attend. Jiwoo stood before the gathered Vrexian leaders with her heart pounding. "This writing program has gone too far," Thrace said. His voice echoed off the council chamber walls. "Our cubs spend more time making marks than training for hunts. Their claws grow dull from holding tools instead of weapons. This is not what we agreed to." Ambassador Teo stepped forward. "With respect, Elder, the cubs are still completing their combat training. In fact, their instructors report improved focus and discipline." "That is not the point," another elder said. This was Matriarch Vesa, the oldest of the council. "The point is identity. We are hunters, warriors. Our culture is built on these foundations. Writing is not part of who we are." Jiwoo found her voice. "Forgive me, Matriarch, but culture is not fixed. It grows. It adapts. The Vrexian cubs who learn to write are not becoming less Vrexian. They are becoming Vrexians with new abilities." "New abilities we do not need," Thrace said. "How do you know?" Wu asked. "Have you tried to learn? Have you seen what writing can preserve?" The chamber fell silent. No one had expected her to challenge the elders directly. Crix stepped forward from where he had been standing with other cubs. "Elders, please, may I speak?" Thrace looked annoyed but nodded. Crix unwrapped his cloth and pulled out the pages about his grandfather. "Matriarch Vesa, you knew Croter, my grandfather. You hunted with him in your youth." Vesa's eyes softened. "I did. He was a great warrior." "Then you know stories about him that I have never heard. Stories that might die when you pass into the ancestors' embrace, but what if they did not have to die? What if I could write them down, exactly as you tell them? Then cubs 100 generations from now could read about Croter in his own time's words." Vesa was quiet for a long moment. "Read them to me." "These pages you have written." Crix read his history of Croter aloud. His voice was steady, clear. When he finished, several elders were leaning forward, listening intently. "The famine year?" Vesa said softly. "You have the details correct. The red season lasted 7 months, not 6 as most stories say. And Croter did lead the pack to the underground streams. How did you know these details?" "My mother told me." But her mother told her, and memories fade. I wanted to capture it exactly before more details were lost. Vesa stood. She was old, her scales faded with age, but her presence commanded respect. "May I see those pages?" Crix handed them to her. She held them carefully, running one clawed finger over the letters. She could not read them yet, but she could see the care in each mark. "This changes things," she said. "I have been alive for 93 seasons. I have seen much, and I have watched our histories blur with time. Cubs today barely know the names of warriors from my youth. By the time I die, those names will be gone, unless—" She looked at Jitwu. "Unless they are written down." "Matriarch, you cannot be serious," Thrace said. "Writing is a human skill, not a Vrexian one." "So was using fire once," Vesa replied. "Every skill was new to us at some point. We learned. We adapted. That is why we have survived." The council talked for hours. Arguments flew back and forth. Some elders agreed with Vesa, others sided with Thrace. Finally, a compromise was reached. The writing program would continue, but only for cubs who wanted to participate. It would not be mandatory. And combat training would remain the priority. Ji Wu accepted these terms. It was not everything she had hoped for, but it was enough. The door remained open. After the council meeting, Crix approached Ji Wu. "Thank you for defending the program." "You defended it yourself. That speech about your grandfather was perfect." "I meant what I said. This skill is important, and I want to honor you for bringing it to us." He pulled out a fresh sheet of paper. "I have been practicing something, a special set of symbols." He showed her the paper. On it he had written a name, not in the human alphabet they had been using, but in something new, a hybrid system that combined human letter shapes with Vrexian pictographic elements. It was beautiful, flowing, strong. "This is your name," Crix said. "Guwu." I wanted to write it in a way that captured both our peoples, human structure, Vrexian strength. View looked at her name written in this new script. Tears filled her eyes. "Crix, this is the first step toward a true Vrexian writing system. You have created something new. We created it together. You gave me the foundation. I am building on it." He hesitated, then added, "I want to show you something else. Another project I have been working on." He led her to a quiet corner where several papers lay spread out. On them, Crix had been developing a full alphabet. Symbols that worked with Vrexian hands and represented Vrexian sounds. It was rough, incomplete, but the potential was clear. "I have been thinking," Crix said. "The human alphabet works, but it is designed for human sounds and human hands. We need our own system, something that honors where this knowledge came from, but makes it truly ours." Wu studied the symbols. Each one was carefully thought out. "Have you tested these with other cubs?" "Yes. Thresh has been helping me." "So have several others." "We have been meeting in the evenings, working on it together." "This is exactly what should happen," Wu said. "I gave you tools. Now you are making them your own." That evening, there was a cultural celebration in the settlement. A festival honoring the first successful hunt of the season. Humans and Vrexians gathered together, Food was shared. Stories were told. And for the first time, something new happened. Crix stood before the assembly. In his hands, he held papers. His writing about Croter. And at the bottom, in the new hybrid script he had developed, he had written his teacher's name. "I want to share something," Crix announced. "A history of my grandfather, written down so it will never be forgotten. And I want to thank the one who made this possible. Teacher Ji-woo, who taught a predator cub how to hold a pencil." He read his history aloud while the crowd listened. When he finished, he showed the final page. Ji-woo's name, written large and clear in the new Vrexian human script. "This is the first name I learned to write," Crix said, "not my own. Not my family's, hers, because she believed in me when others did not. She saw possibility where others saw only difference." The crowd. 3 weeks had passed since Crix made his first line. Now he could make circles. He could make straight lines and curved ones. His control was getting better every day. The modified grip that Belrod designed worked, though Crix's hands still cramped after too much practice. His muscles were not used to this kind of work. Dr. Wu brought new exercises each day, simple shapes first, then combinations of shapes. She was teaching him the building blocks of drawing and writing. Crix absorbed everything like a sponge. But he practiced alone. The other cubs had not returned. Word had spread through the young Vrexian community that Crix was learning prey behavior. Some laughed at him. Others avoided him. In Vrexian culture, weakness was not tolerated. And to them, gentleness looked like weakness. One morning, Crix came to class with fresh scratches on his scales. "What happened?" Wu asked, concerned. "Training exercise," Crix said shortly. "I was distracted, made mistakes." Ji-woo knew he was not telling the full truth. She had seen bullying before in her years as a teacher. It looked the same across species. "Did someone hurt you because you come here?" Crix's claws extended slightly. A sign of stress. Some of the older cubs say I shame my pack. They say my grandfather would be disappointed in me. They say I'm becoming soft. "You are not soft," Ji-woo said firmly. "You are learning new skills. That takes strength, not weakness." They do not see it that way. Yesterday, during combat practice, 3 of them surrounded me. They said if I can hold a pencil, surely I cannot fight anymore. They challenged me, and... A small, sharp smile crossed Crix's face. "I won, all 3 of them. I am still a hunter. Learning to make marks does not change that." Wu felt pride swell in her chest. "Good. Never let others define what you are capable of." They began the day's lesson. Ji-woo was teaching Crix about letters now. She had started with the human alphabet, but they both knew that eventually they would need to create something that worked better for Vrexian sounds and language structure. For now, though, basic shapes were enough. She wrote the letter A on paper. This is a symbol. In human writing, it represents a sound. When you see this shape, you know what sound to make. Many of these symbols together make words. Words make sentences. Sentences carry meaning. Crix copied the letter carefully. His version was shaky but recognizable. He practiced it over and over until his hand hurt. Then he moved to the next letter. "Why do humans need so many symbols?" he asked. "We have sounds too, but we just remember them." "How many Vrexians are there on your world?" Ji-woo asked. "Millions," Crix said. "And how many stories do your elders know? How many histories?" "Many, hundreds, maybe thousands." "And what happens when an elder dies before?" "Teaching all their stories to the young?" Crix paused. "The stories die too, some of them." "That is why we write?" Ji-woo said. "So knowledge does not die with the person who holds it. Your grandfather's stories could have been written down by him. Then you could read his exact words, not someone else's memory of his words." This thought clearly affected Crix. He looked down at the letters he had been practicing. "If I learn this, could I write down stories about my pack? About my family?" "Yes, you could write anything you want, stories, ideas, observations. All of it could live beyond you." "Teach me more," Crix said with new intensity. "I want to learn faster." They worked through the morning. Ji-woo showed him how letters combined into simple words: cat, dog, sun, moon. Crix struggled with some combinations. His hands were made for power, not precision. But he kept trying, kept pushing himself. During a break, another cub appeared in the doorway. It was Thresh. She had not come to class in 2 weeks. "Crix," she said, "your pack leader wants you. Training time." "I am in the middle of learning," Crix said without looking up from his paper. "You have been in the middle of learning for weeks. You miss training, you miss pack hunts, the leader is angry. Tell him I will come later." Thresh walked fully into the room. She looked at the papers scattered around Crix, covered in his practice letters. "Why do you waste your time with this? What good are marks on paper? Can they help you hunt? Can they help you fight?" Crix set down his pencil carefully. "Can your claws tell someone 1,000 years from now what you thought today? Can your teeth preserve knowledge after you die? No. But I do not need them to. I need them to survive." "Survival is not enough," Crix said quietly. "I want to do more than survive. I want to create. I want to leave something behind." Thresh snorted. But Jiwoo noticed she was staring at the papers with something that might have been curiosity. "The others say you are changing, becoming less Vexian." "I am becoming more myself," Crix replied. "These marks do not make me less of a hunter. They make me a hunter who can also build, create, preserve." "Show me," Thresh said suddenly. Crix looked surprised. "Show you what? How you do it? How you make marks?" Jiwoo felt her heart beat faster. Another student, maybe. Crix picked up his pencil and the modified grip. He drew a simple flower, copying one that Jiwoo had shown him days ago. His lines were rough but clear. A flower with 5 petals and a stem. Thresh leaned closer. Her yellow eyes tracked every movement of the pencil. When Crix finished, she reached out and touched the paper gently with one claw. "You made that? Just now?" "Yes. It looks like the fire flowers that grow near the eastern cliffs." "That is what Jiwoo said they are called. Flowers." Thresh looked at Jiwoo. "Can anyone learn this? Or only cubs like Crix who have gone soft?" "Anyone can learn," Jiwoo said calmly, ignoring the insult. "It takes practice and patience." "But yes, anyone. Even me? Especially you." Thresh thought about this for a long moment. Then she sat down on the floor beside Crix. "Show me how to hold the tool." That day Jiwoo taught 2 cubs instead of 1. Thresh was less patient than Crix. She broke several pencils in frustration. But she kept trying. By the end of the session she had made a circle, not perfect but deliberate. "Tomorrow," Thresh said as she left. "I will come back tomorrow." After she was gone, Crix looked at Jiwoo with something like hope. "Do you think others will come too?" "Maybe." Word spreads. Thresh has many friends. If she thinks this is worthwhile, they might listen. Over the next week, 3 more cubs joined the class, then 5 more, then 10. The classroom became crowded with young Vrexians trying to hold modified grips and make marks on paper. Bura had to design more grip devices. Jiwoo had to order more supplies from the human ship. The cubs learned at different speeds. Some picked up the basics quickly, others struggled. But they all kept coming, and they all wanted to learn more. Ambassador Teo visited again. This time his expression was different, less skeptical, more impressed. "I heard you have 20 students now," he said. 23 as of this morning, Jiwoo corrected. "The Vrexian elders are talking about this. Some are pleased. They say it shows cooperation between our species, but others are worried. They say you are changing their youth too much." "I am not changing them," Wu said. "I am giving them a new tool. What they do with it is their choice. Some of the adult Vrexians are calling it corruption. They say writing will make the cubs weak, unable to hunt properly. Have they tested this theory? Have any of these cubs failed their combat training?" Teo smiled slightly. "No, in fact several have improved. Apparently the focus and control needed for writing helps with precision in hunting. Then what is the real problem?" "Change is scary, even good change. Especially for a culture built on tradition." Jiwoo understood this. She had seen it before on Earth. New teaching methods always faced resistance at first. People feared what they did not understand. "The cubs are not losing their culture," she said. "They are adding to it. There is a difference." That evening, Crix stayed late after class. He had been working on something for days but would not show Ji-woo what it was. He kept his papers folded and hidden. "I want to show you something," he said finally. He unfolded a paper and placed it in front of her. On it he had drawn a scene. It was rough, the lines shaky, but the image was clear. A large Rexian stood on a cliff looking out over a valley. The detail was limited, but the feeling was there. Strength, solitude, purpose. "This is my grandfather," Crix said quietly. "From the stories I was told, this is how I imagine him." Ji-woo felt tears prick her eyes. "Crix, this is beautiful." "It is not just a picture," Crix said. "Look," he pointed to marks at the bottom of the page, letters, words, Rexian sounds, written in the human alphabet they had been practicing. "I wrote his name, and underneath I wrote, he was brave. He was strong, he was my grandfather." Ji-woo read the words. They were simple, but they meant everything. This was the first time a Rexian had written about their own history. The first time their oral tradition had been captured in written form. "Now my grandfather's name will not be forgotten," Crix said. "Even after everyone who knew him is gone, these marks will remain. He will remain." "Yes," Ji-woo whispered. "He will." That night, Ji-woo lay in her quarters unable to sleep. She kept thinking about what Crix had created. It was more than a drawing with words. It was a bridge between past and future. Between memory and permanence. She wondered how many other Rexian cubs would learn to write their family stories. How many histories would be preserved that would have been lost? How much knowledge would survive because someone taught a curious cub to hold a pencil? The classroom was not what Ji-woo expected. It was a large open space with high ceilings and stone walls. No desks, no chairs, no windows. The Rexians did not believe in sitting while learning. Young hunters needed to move, to practice, to engage their bodies as well as their minds. 6 Rexian cubs waited for her. Crix stood at the front, still holding the drawing of the moons. He had kept it for 3 days. The paper was crumpled now from his claws, but he would not let it go. The other 5 cubs looked at Ji-woo with a mix of curiosity and suspicion. They were slightly larger than Crix, their scales darker. One of them, a female cub named Thresh, kept sniffing the air around Ji-woo. "You smell strange," Thresh said. Not rude, just stating a fact. Soft, like prey. "I am human," Ji-woo said calmly. "We smell different from Vrexians. Just as you smell different to me. What do we smell like?" Another cub asked. This one was called Vex. "Like warm stones and metal," Ji-woo said honestly. "It is not bad. Just different." The cubs seemed to accept this. They moved closer, forming a loose circle around her. Ji-woo fought the urge to step back. She knew that showing fear would be wrong here. Vrexians respected strength. "Elder Thrace says you will teach us about humans," Crix said. "About your ways. Yes, if you want to learn." "We want to learn how to make marks," Thresh said. She pointed at Crix's drawing. "Show us." Ji-woo smiled. She had hoped they would be interested. She pulled out her bag and took out paper and pencils. She gave each cub a sheet of paper. Then she held up a pencil. "This is a pencil," she said. "Humans use these to write and draw. Writing is how we keep information. We make symbols that represent words. These symbols can be read by anyone who knows the system. Drawing is how we make images of things we see or imagine." The cubs stared at the pencils. Vex picked one up with his claws. It looked tiny in his hand. He squeezed it and the pencil snapped in half. "Too weak," Vex said, disappointed. "No," Ji-woo said. "You are too strong. Here, let me show you." She took another pencil and held it gently between her fingers. "You hold it like this, soft, you do not squeeze. You guide it." She drew a simple circle on her paper. The cubs watched intensely. Then she offered the pencil to Thresh. Thresh tried to copy Ji-woo's grip, but her claws got in the way. They were sharp and curved, designed for tearing and holding prey. Not for delicate work. She growled in frustration and dropped the pencil. "This is stupid," she said. "Vrexians do not need to make marks. We have our voices. We have our memories. But voices fade, Jiwoo said. And memories can change or be lost. Writing stays. A message written today can be read 100 years from now. Why would we want that? Vex asked. Jiwoo thought about how to explain. Your elders tell stories of great hunts, yes? Of famous warriors from long ago? The cubs nodded eagerly. They loved the old stories. What if those warriors had written down their own stories? In their own words? You could read exactly what they thought, what they felt. Not just what others remember. This made the cubs pause. Crix picked up a pencil carefully. My grandfather was a great hunter, he said quietly. He died before I was born. I only know stories others tell about him. I wish I could know his thoughts. That is why writing matters, Jiwoo said. It lets us speak across time. For the next hour, Jiwoo tried to help the cubs hold pencils. It was harder than she expected. Their hands were not made for this. Every attempt ended in broken pencils or torn paper. The cubs grew frustrated. Some wanted to give up, but Crix kept trying. He gripped the pencil in different ways, testing each one. Jiwoo watched him carefully. He had a predator's patience when tracking something he wanted. By the end of the session, none of the cubs had successfully drawn anything. They left disappointed. All except Crix. He took a handful of pencils with him. I will practice, he said to Jiwoo. I know you will. After the cubs left, Ambassador Teo visited the classroom. He looked around at the broken pencils and torn papers scattered everywhere. How did it go? He asked, though his face said he already knew. It was difficult, Jiwoo admitted. Their hands are not made for this kind of work. Maybe that is a sign, Teo said gently. Not every species needs writing. The Vrexians have survived for thousands of years without it. They have their own ways. Every species can benefit from writing, Jiwoo said firmly. It is not about need. It is about possibility. About opening new paths. I admire your dedication. But be realistic. You have been here 3 days and you have not made any progress. The Vrexian elders are already saying this exchange is pointless. They think teaching their cubs human skills makes them weak. One of them is trying, Jiwoo said. Crix has not given up. One cub is not enough to justify this program. One cub is how all change begins. Teo sighed. He knew that tone. Jiwoo would not quit easily. I will give you 2 more weeks. If there is no progress by then, we will end this part of the exchange and focus on diplomatic talks only. After he left, Jiwoo sat on the stone floor. She looked at the broken pencils. Maybe Teo was right. Maybe she was trying to force something that should not be forced. Different species had different strengths. Why should the Vrexians learn human methods? But then she thought of Crix's face when he looked at the drawing of the moons. The wonder in his eyes. The hunger to understand how it was made. That was not a human thing or a Vrexian thing. That was curiosity. And curiosity was universal. That evening, Jiwoo went to the Human Research Building. She found Biora in the biology lab. Biora was a scientist who had been studying Vrexian anatomy. I need your help, Jiwoo said. I need to understand Vrexian hands better. Their bone structure, their muscle placement, their claw mechanics. Biora looked up from her microscope. Why? Because I am trying to teach them to write, and I am failing. Their hands are made for hunting, not for holding pencils. But there must be a way. I just need to understand how they are built. Biora smiled. You are not giving up. No, good, I like that. Let me show you what I know. They spent hours studying diagrams of Vrexian hands. Biora explained how the claws retracted, how the muscles worked, where the strength was concentrated. Jiwoo took notes and made sketches. What if we modified the tool instead of asking them to modify their grip? Biora suggested. What if we design something that works with their natural hand structure? Can we do that? We can try. For the next week, Jiwoo and Biora worked together. They tested different designs. Pencils with thicker grips, holders that fit between claws, attachments that strapped to the hand. Most of them failed, but they kept trying, making adjustments, learning from each failure. Meanwhile, Jiwoo continued teaching the cubs. Most of them stopped coming after a few days. Only Crix remained. He showed up every morning with his crumpled drawing and his determination. "The others say I'm wasting my time," Crix told her one day. "They say learning prey skills makes me weak, that I should focus on combat training. What do you think?" Jiwoo asked. Crix looked at his clawed hands. "I think there is more than one kind of strength. My grandfather was strong because he could hunt, but also because he could think. He could plan. He could understand his prey. Maybe making marks is another way to understand things?" Wu felt hope rise in her chest. "Keep coming, Crix. We will find a way." On the 10th day, Bara came to the classroom with a new design. It was a grip that fit over the hand, with a slot for a pencil that aligned with the natural position of Rexian claws. It looked awkward but functional. "Let us try this," she said. Crix put on the device. He held the pencil through it. For the first time, the pencil stayed steady in his grip. He lowered it to the paper dot and made a line dot. It was shaky. It was rough. But it was a line? Made on purpose. Made with control. Crix stared at what he had done. Then he looked up at Jiwoo with his yellow eyes shining. "I did it," he said. "I made a mark." "You did?" Jiwoo said, and her voice shook with emotion. "You really did?" It was a small thing. One line, but it was a beginning. And beginnings were everything. The human ship touched down on red soil under two pale moons. Jiwoo pressed her hand against the window and watched dust clouds rise around the landing pad. Her heart beat faster than normal. This was it. First contact with the Vrexians. The species that had frightened half the galaxy with their hunting skills and sharp claws. "Remember the protocol?" Ambassador Teo said behind her. His voice was calm, but his hands gripped his datapad too tightly. "Stay behind the diplomatic line. No sudden movements. These beings are predators. They read body language differently than we do." Wu nodded. She had studied the files for months. The Vrexians were tall, covered in dark scales, with eyes that could track movement from incredible distances. They had never lost a war. Their society was built on hunting and combat. Some human officials had argued against this cultural exchange program. "Too dangerous," they said. "Too different from us, but Jiwoo believed in bridges. She was a teacher. That was what teachers did. They built bridges between the known and the unknown. The ship's door opened. Heat rushed in, carrying strange scents. Jiwoo followed Teo and the other diplomats down the ramp. A group of Vrexians waited at the bottom. They were even more impressive in person. Each one stood at least 7 feet tall. Their scales caught the sunlight and turned it into dark rainbows. Their claws clicked softly against the stone ground. The lead Vrexian stepped forward. This was Elder Thrace, according to the briefing files. He wore ceremonial armor marked with hunting symbols. "Humans," Thrace said. His voice was deep and rough like grinding stones. "You honor us with your presence. Welcome to our homeworld." Teo bowed in the Vrexian style they had practiced. One hand over the chest, head tilted to expose the neck. A sign of trust. Jiwoo copied him along with the other humans. The ceremony began. Speeches were made in both languages. Gifts were exchanged. Jiwoo found it hard to concentrate. She kept looking at the young Vrexians standing behind the elders. Cubs, they were called. They looked restless, shifting from foot to foot. One of them kept staring at the human group with bright yellow eyes. That cub was small for a Vrexian, maybe only 5 feet tall. His scales were lighter than the adults, not quite fully darkened yet. He watched everything with intense focus. A hunter's focus. Suddenly the cub moved. He broke away from his guardians and ran straight toward the humans. His claws extended. His mouth opened to show rows of sharp teeth. Several humans shouted. Guards reached for weapons. But Jiwoo saw something in the cub's eyes. Not rage, curiosity. She had seen that look before in her classroom back on Earth, the look of a child who wanted to know, To understand, to see something up close, she did not run. She did not call for help. Instead, Jiwoo dropped to one knee. She made herself smaller, less threatening. She met the cub's yellow eyes directly. The cub stopped 3 feet away. His claws were still out. His breath came fast. But he did not attack. He tilted his head to one side, confused. Jiwoo slowly reached into her jacket pocket. The guards tensed, but she moved carefully. She pulled out a piece of paper. On it was a sketch she had made during the journey. A simple drawing of the twin moons they could see in the Vrexian sky at night. She had drawn them with colored pencils. Trying to capture their pale beauty, she held the paper out to the cub. He stared at it. His claws retracted slightly. He leaned forward and sniffed the paper. Then he reached out with one clawed hand and took it. He held it up to the light, studying the drawing from different angles. "What is this?" the cub asked. His voice was young, not yet as deep as the adults. "A picture," Jiwoo said softly. "I made it. With these." She pulled out her pencil case and showed him the colored pencils inside. "Tools for making marks. For creating images." The cub looked at the pencils, then at the drawing, then back at Jiwoo. Something like wonder crossed his face. "You made this? These marks?" "Yes. How?" Jiwoo smiled. She took out a pencil and a fresh piece of paper. Right there, kneeling on the red soil of an alien world, she drew a simple flower. The cub watched every movement of her hand. His eyes followed the pencil like it was prey he was tracking. Behind them, Jiwoo could hear shocked voices. The Vrexian elders were speaking rapidly in their own language. Teo was calling her name, worried. But she focused on the cub. "What is your name?" she asked him. "Crix," the cub said. He could not look away from the drawing. "Hello, Crix, my name is Jiwoo." "Woo," he repeated carefully. "Teacher?" "Yes, I am a teacher." "Teach me," Crix said immediately. "Teach me to make marks." Before Jiwoo could answer, 2 adult Vrexians grabbed Crix and pulled him back. They spoke harshly to him in their language. Crix struggled but obeyed, allowing himself to be led away. He held the drawing of the moons tightly in his clawed hand. Elder Thrace approached Jiwoo. His face was impossible to read. "No outsider has ever calmed one of our young," he said slowly. "They are wild, untrained, driven by instinct." Jiwoo stood up and brushed dust from her knees. He was not wild. He was curious. "Curious?" Thrace repeated the word like it was foreign to him. "That is not a trait we value in cubs. They must learn to hunt, to fight, to survive." "Curiosity is how all young ones learn," Jiwoo said. "Human or Vrexian?" Thrace studied her for a long moment. Then he made a gesture to one of his attendants. They spoke quietly. Finally, Thrace turned back to Jiwoo. "You are part of the cultural exchange program, yes? You were assigned to teach our young about human ways." "That was the plan." "Then you will teach them, including Crix. We will see if your human methods have any value." His tone suggested he doubted it strongly. "But I warn you, Teacher Jiwoo, our cubs are not like your children. They are predators. They do not sit still. They do not follow gentle instructions." Jiwoo looked toward where Crix had disappeared. She could still see him in the distance, holding her drawing up to the light of the twin moons. "Then I will learn their ways," she said. "And they will learn mine." Teo put a hand on her shoulder. "Jiwoo, are you sure about this? That cub could have hurt you." "But he didn't," Jiwoo said. "He wanted to understand. That is where all teaching begins." She did not know it then, but that moment on the landing pad would change everything. Not just for her, and not just for Crix, for an entire species. For the galaxy itself, all because a teacher knelt down and offered a drawing to a curious cub who wanted to know how to make marks on paper. The writing program grew faster than anyone expected. Within 3 months, over 200 Vrexian cubs were learning. Crix's hybrid writing system spread through the young population like fire through dry grass. The cubs adapted it, refined it, made it truly their own, but with growth came backlash. War Chief Gren had been watching the changes with growing anger. He was the leader of the traditional warrior faction, a Vrexian who believed the old ways were the only ways. He had fought in the territorial wars of the northern lands. He had trained 3 generations of hunters. And now he saw cubs choosing pencils over weapons. One morning, Gren came to Wu Wu's classroom. He stood in the doorway, massive and intimidating. His scales were scarred from decades of combat. His claws were polished to razor sharpness. "Teacher," he said, his voice like grinding stone, "we need to talk." Ji Wu set down her papers. The cubs in the room fell silent. "Of course, War Chief. How can I help you?" "You can stop this corruption of our youth." "Corruption?" Ji Wu kept her voice calm. "I teach them to write, to preserve knowledge." "How is that corruption?" "You make them weak, soft. They spend hours making little marks when they should be training to fight, to hunt, to survive. You are destroying what it means to be Vrexian." "I disagree. I think I'm expanding what it means to be Vrexian." Gren's claws extended. "You are human. You do not get to define what we are." "You are right," Ji Wu said. "I do not define you. But neither do you define what every Vrexian must be. These cubs are choosing to learn. No one forces them. They are young. They do not understand the consequences. When enemies come, will marks on paper defend them? When they hunt, will writing skills feed their families? When their elders die, will claws and teeth preserve their stories? When they want to share knowledge across distances, will hunting skills carry messages?" Gren moved closer, his bulk filling the room. Some of the cubs shrank back. But Crick stood up, placing himself between Ji Wu and the War Chief. "War Chief Gren," Crick said respectfully but firmly, "Teacher Ji Wu means no disrespect to our ways. She adds to them, not replaces them." "You?" Gren said, looking at Crix with disappointment. "Croter's blood runs in your veins. Your grandfather would be ashamed to see you like this, playing with prey tools instead of mastering the hunt." "My grandfather was wise enough to learn from others," Crix replied. "He studied the migration patterns of the ridge beasts by observing, by thinking, by understanding. Not just by following tradition." "Do not lecture me about Croter. I fought beside him." "Then you know he valued intelligence as much as strength." Gren was quiet for a moment. Then he turned back to Ji Wu. "I am calling for a council vote. To end this program, our cubs need to remember what they are, predators, not scribes." He left without waiting for a response. The cubs erupted into worried conversation. Would the council really shut down the program? Would they be forbidden from learning? Ji Wu raised her hand for quiet. "Whatever happens, remember this. Knowledge, once learned, cannot be unlearned. Even if they stop the program, you will carry what you have gained. No one can take that from you." But she was worried. Gren had influence. If he pushed hard enough, the council might side with him out of fear or tradition. That night, Ambassador Teo came to Gewu's quarters. "I heard about Gren's visit. This is serious, Ji Wu. He is not just some angry elder. He commands the warrior class. If he wants the program ended, he can make it happen. Then we need to show the council why it should continue. How? By arguing? Gren does not care about arguments. He cares about results, about what he sees as the weakening of his people." Wu thought hard. What if we could show him that writing does not make the cubs weak? That it actually enhances their abilities? How would we do that? "I have an idea, but I need the cubs' help." The next day, Ji Wu gathered all her students. Nearly 300 cubs now, a massive group. She explained the situation. Gren wanted the program ended. The council would vote in 3 days. "We need to show them what we have accomplished," Wu said. "Not just drawings and practice letters. Real applications. Ways that writing enhances Vrexian culture without diminishing it." Crix stepped forward. "I have been writing down hunting strategies. Different approaches for different prey. If we compiled these from multiple hunters, we would have a reference guide. Something that could help train new hunters faster. Thresh spoke next. I have been writing about the medicinal plants in the southern regions. My mother is a healer. She knows which plants cure which ailments. But that knowledge exists only in the memories of healers. If one dies before teaching, the knowledge dies too. We could write it all down. Another cub named Dax said, I've been mapping the territory, drawing accurate pictures of landmarks, distances, water sources. These maps could help packs navigate unfamiliar areas safely. One by one, the cubs shared their projects. Battle histories, family trees, technical knowledge about tool making and shelter building. They had not just learned to write. They had learned to document, to preserve, to share knowledge in new ways. This is perfect, Zhiwu said. We will present all of this to the council. Show them that writing serves Rexian needs. For 3 days, the cubs worked frantically. They compiled their writings, organized them, prepared presentations. Adult Rexians who supported the program helped. Even some of the human scientists contributed, adding their expertise to create truly comprehensive documents. The council meeting was held in the Great Hall. Every elder attended. War Chief Gren sat in the place of honor, his expression hard. Matriarch Vesa presided over the proceedings. We gathered to vote on the continuation of the writing program, Vesa announced. War Chief Gren has called for its termination. He believes it weakens our youth. Before we vote, both sides will present their arguments. Gren stood. His speech was powerful, emotional. He talked about tradition, about the warrior spirit, about the dangers of abandoning their nature. Many elders nodded in agreement. Then it was time for the other side. Jiwoo expected to speak, but Crick stood instead. Elders, he said, I will not ask you to trust a human's words about what is good for Vrexians. Instead, I ask you to look at what we have created. The cubs came forward, carrying their compiled works. They spread them across the council floor. Hundreds of pages, hunting guides, medical knowledge, maps, histories, technical manuals, all written in the hybrid Vrexian script. These are not human documents, Crick said. These are Vrexian documents, written by Vrexians for Vrexians. They serve our needs, our culture, our survival. Thresh stepped forward. My mother's healing knowledge is here. Every plant, every remedy, every technique. If she died tomorrow, nothing would be lost. Future generations would benefit from her lifetime of learning. Dax unrolled his maps. These show water sources in the disputed territories, accurate distances, safe paths, information that could save lives during hunts or in conflict. One by one, the cubs presented their work. The elders listened, looked, considered. Even Gren seemed unsure now, seeing the practical applications. Then Crix did something unexpected. He pulled out a specific document and brought it to Gren. War Chief, Crix said respectfully. This is about you. Gren took the papers. His eyes scanned the writing, though he could not read it himself yet. What is this? It is your war record. Every battle you fought in. Every territory you secured. Every student you trained. I interviewed the warriors who fought beside you. I gathered every story I could find, and I wrote it all down. So when you join the ancestors, your legacy will remain. Not in fading memory, but in permanent record. Gren's hands shook slightly as he held the papers. My legacy? Yes, you said my grandfather would be ashamed of me. But I wrote down his legacy too. And now cubs who never met him can read about his deeds, can learn from his wisdom, can honor his memory. Writing does not erase our warriors. It preserves them forever. The hall was absolutely silent. Gren stared at the document about his own life. His claws traced the symbols he could not yet read. You did this? He asked quietly. For me? For all of us. Every Vrexian warrior deserves to be remembered. But memory fades. Writing remains. Gren looked at Jiwoo. His expression had changed. The anger was gone. Something else had replaced it. Respect, maybe. Or understanding. I was wrong, he said. The words seemed difficult for him. I saw writing as a human thing, an outsider's corruption. But this, he held up the document. This is Vrexian. This serves our people. He turned to the council. I withdraw my call for termination. This program should continue. And one, he paused, as if the next words were even harder. I want to learn. To read these pages about my life. To understand what has been written. Matriarch Vesa smiled. Then it is decided. The writing program continues, and we will establish it formally as part of Vrexian education. Not mandatory, but available to all who wish to learn. The hall erupted in approval sounds. Cubs clicked their claws in celebration. The human diplomats looked stunned and pleased. After the meeting, Gren approached Ji Woo. He held out the document about his war record. Will you teach me? He asked. An old warrior wants to read his own story. Gu smiled. It would be my honor, War Chief. That evening there was a massive celebration. Hundreds of Vrexians and humans gathered. Food was shared. Stories were told. And something historic happened.